In this video, we'll see these letters.
samech, ayin, pe, fe,
And the sofit form.
fe סופית.
I hope you still remember Aleph, Bet, Vet, Gimel, Dalet, and Hey. And also,
וו, זין, ח', ט', יוד, כ', כ' סופית, כ', כ' סופית.
Lamed, Mem, Memzafit, Noon, and Noonsafit. Now we're ready to see.
samech, ayin, pe, fe,
And
fe סופית.
And remember, in Hebrew, some letters are written differently when they are found at the end of a word. The end form of such letters are called.
סופית,
In previous videos, we've already seen
כ' סופית, כ' סופית, מ' סופית,
and
נ' סופית.
this time we'll see the end form of the letter.
fe,
Its end form is called.
fe סופית.
Regarding vowels, we will see more examples of the nikud signs that we have seen before. Note that the nikud signs for the vowel A always have a little flat line. And the nikud signs for the vowel A always have a minimum of 2 little dots below a letter, so remember E for egg, and it really looks like eggs being laid below. Now, the vowel E is like the dot below an exclamation point, so remember it like the exclamation of a shriek during an injection. And the nikud sign for the vowel O is always a dot on top of a letter. Now let's start seeing the letters.
samech, samech, samech.
Has the sound of S. In the Hebrew word for pair, we have these letters.
א', ג',
And
סמך,
this is how we say it.
אגס, אגס, אגס.
Means pair. The nikud signs in the word agas are a short vowel A and a long vowel A. So, we say,
אגס, אגס.
and did you notice the dot inside the letter Gimel? That dot is called.
דגש,
In Hebrew, certain letters have the dagesh dot. We have already seen the example of the letter Bet, where the dot tells us to pronounce it as a B sound, and in the letter Kaf and Kaf Sofit, the dot in these letters tells us to pronounce a K sound. Later on, you'll see that the dot in the letter Pei tells us to pronounce a P sound. However, when the letter Gimel has a dagesh, the pronunciation does not change. So, whether it has or doesn't have a dot, we pronounce Gimel as the G sound of the word give. In a future video, you'll also see that the dagesh in the letter Tav does not change its pronunciation. Now, let's see this letter.
ayin, ayin, ayin.
Is a silent letter. Its pronunciation depends on the nikud sign that is placed on it. In Hebrew, there are 2 silent letters. These are Aleph and ayin. There are words where they are silent, and there are words where they adopt a vowel sound. In such cases, the vowel sound they adopt will depend on the associated nikud sign. Here's a word that is spelled with the letter ayin and the letter lamed.
al, al,
is a preposition that can have many different usages. It could mean on, it could mean about, it could also mean of, at, or over, it could also mean for. The word al can therefore take on different meanings depending on the context of the phrase or sentence. Here's a popular example of a phrase that contains the preposition
al. El-al. El-al. El-al
is the name of Israel's flag carrier airline company. In this context, al means towards, and al means over. Together, el and al convey the idea of going skyward. In fact, in the Bible, el-al is a phrase that means upward, heavenward, or skyward. And if you look at the nikud signs, the silent letter aleph has the sign for pronouncing a short e, as in egg, and the silent letter ayin has a nikud sign for pronouncing a short a sound. So, we say
el-al. El-al.
Now, let's see these letters.
P.
An
F. P.
has the P sound, and has a dot inside.
F.
Has the F sound, and does not have a dot inside. Here's a word spelled with
P. Lamed. P. Lamed.
and this is how we pronounce it.
Pilpel. Pilpel.
It's the Hebrew word for pepper.
Pilpel. Pilpel.
Has three nikud signs.
Chirik.
The nikud sign, for pronouncing a short E sound, as in the E, of igloo. We find it under the first letter P. Next, we see a
Shva.
shva, can be silent, or adopt the sound of a short sound of A. In this case, it is silent. Then, we see that under the second letter P, is the nikud sign called
Tzire.
It tells us to pronounce a long E sound, as in the E, of egg. So we pronounce this word as
Pilpel. Pilpel.
Now, let's look at a word which contains the letter Fe. In fact, there are two Fes here. Let's spell it.
F. Lamed. F. Lamed.
This is how we pronounce this word.
Falafel. Falafel.
This is a very popular food in Israel. It is made of fried chickpeas, shaped into balls, and served with pita bread, vegetables and hummus.
Falafel.
Has three nikud signs. There's a nikud sign for pronouncing a long A, under the first Fe, and under the first Lamed. Then, under the second Fe, there's a nikud sign for pronouncing a short E sound, as in the word egg. So, we say
Falafel. Falafel.
So, now that you know the letter Fe, let's see its end form.
Fesofit.
When the F sound is the last sound of a word, we write the sofit form of the letter Fe. Let's see an example. The Hebrew word for chicken ends with a Fe sofit. This is how we pronounce it.
Off. Off.
Let's see why we pronounce it like so. As you can see, the first letter in the word off is
Ayin.
Remember, ayin is a silent letter. It has no nikud sign here, so there's no instruction to pronounce it as a vowel sound. Then, after the silent ayin, we have the letter vav. Note that on top of the letter vav is a dot which tells us to pronounce it as an O sound. So, we have an O sound, plus the F sound of the Fe sofit. So we say
Off. Off.
Now, let's review. Aleph, Bet, Vet, Gimel, Dalet, and Hey. And also,
Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Kaf סופית, Chaf, Chaf סופית,
Lamed, Mem, Memzafit, Noon, and Nunsafit. Now, you also know.
samech, ayin, pe, fe,
And,
fe סופית.
great job! And you now know Fe so fit, the end form of the letter Fe. So you know that when the F sound is the last sound of a word, we write the so fit form of the letter Fe. You have also seen more examples of nickeled vowel signs. Now, let's review the words we've seen.
פלפל, אגס, פלאפל, עוף.
And finally, let's review the prepositions el and al.
אל על,
So, please remember,
samech, ayin, pe, fe,
and the so fit form.
fe סופית.
See you in the next video for more letters.